All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Dave, me, and Nick here going to be doing our preview and prediction for the Texas Longhorns. This coaching staff's a pretty solid one. Steve Sarkisian, his second season here as the lead man, 2020 Boyles Award winner as the OC at Alabama. Kyle Flood, he's going to be the offensive play caller here. Great offensive line recruiter. He's been with Sark since 2018, all the way back to the Falcons days, so they've been around a bit. And then Jeff Choate, former Montana State head coach. He's going to split the DC role with Pete Kwiatkowski, who was enjoyed a long stint at Washington, was very successful. So the Longhorns are coming off the first draft since 2014 with 0 players selected, and they also pulled in the 5th-ranked recruiting class. So I'd say the future is bright. Looking at the offense, though, plenty of optimism here with this unit. It starts with Quinn Ewers. He comes in. Casey Thompson comes out. Edson Card is still on the roster, but this is certainly the former number one recruit's job to lose. The passing game struggled to be effective at times last year, less than 200 yards in 7 games. That's more than half the season. Quinn Ewers, though, he has a lot of great arm talent, dual threat type mobility. This guy is incredibly hyped. What do you feel about Quinn Ewers coming over to Texas? How will he do this season?
2021 was definitely a disappointment in Austin. People are saying Steve Sarkisian should lose his job, which is absolutely ludicrous. I don't understand where that comes from, but they make some work in the portal and they bring in Quinn Ewers, who just didn't really work out in Ohio State. Seemed like a weird fit from the start. Didn't seem like he really fit there. He comes in, the former number one recruit, takes over under center and gives Texas the sort of dynamic quarterback they've been looking for. They really haven't seen a dynamic quarterback like that since Colt McCoy was under center for this team. He steps in and has this real potential here to be that star, be that dominant figure in Austin that they've been looking for so long. He has real arm, real talent. I love what he can do, and I think Steve Sarkisian showed it with Mac Jones during his last season at Alabama that he can build a quarterback into that high-flying offense, and I think this is a real potential for Texas to hit the ground running here and absolutely blast off the blocks and dominate through the air and on the ground.
I believe Ewers, that was a finesse job. He went to Ohio State for the money. He only got like $1 million. Now he transfers out. He always wanted to be at Texas, so I think that kind of is what happened there, because you're right, it never really did make sense. They already have a pretty loaded quarterback roster. He wasn't going to play there. Comes over to Austin, his dream school, and he's going to be the starter here from day one. So very interesting and effective way that use NLI and the transfer portal by Ewers. Bijan Robinson, though, this is the guy I love. Great vision, good cutback runner. This guy fits through creases with ease. I love watching him play football. He's a highlight machine. 1,100 yards, 11 touchdowns last season. Also added 4 more scores and 295 yards through the air. He was at the top of the Heisman race early in the season, and then they started losing. The production went down a bit over his final 3 before missing the last 2. Bijan Robinson, I love this guy. Roschon Johnson, I think they have a very good duo here. 219 pounds, not quite as quick as Bijan. He's a former quarterback, runs with ease, power, 18 touchdowns, 600-plus yards his last 3 seasons combined. He's been a very reliable and productive number 2. 199 yards per game as a team last year for the Longhorns. I really like this backfield. It also features Jaden Blue and Keelan Robinson.
How can you not love Bijan Robinson? Kind of burst onto the scene last year, ends up with 15 total touchdowns, has a solid season, was in the Heisman running, like you said earlier in the season, when Texas was kind of in that mojo before they lost it all towards the second half of the season. And I look at Roschon Johnson, like you said, I like the size he has, add something a little bit different to that speed that Bijan Robinson has, give him sort of a contrasting running backs, which I think is really effective when you're trying to run an offense, that high-powered offense that Steve Sarkisian is known for. I think this will be kind of fun to see what they can do. I expect Johnson to have a decent season last year. He picked up 569 yards on the ground. I expect to see a little bit more out of him, maybe breaking 800 yards. But also, like you said, it's a very deep backfield of some other talented backs as well. So the running game should be strong in Austin this year for sure.
And you look at this receiving core, it's pretty loaded. They added 3 good transfers. Jai Hall comes over from Alabama, struggled with attitude and the ability to catch last year, but he possesses plenty of balance, nice acrobatic abilities. Jaleel Billingsley as well, athletic, 6'4", 216. Didn't do much last year like expected. He was kind of in the Nick Saban doghouse as well. Seems like these guys like Sark betters. They're both now in Austin. He's a guy that can be utilized in a variety of different ways, though. In 2020 with Sark as OC, you've seen that. So I think Billingsley and Hawley both have some great potential, especially with the recent kind of chemistry they've already kind of had with Sark. So interesting to see what those 2 Bama guys can do. Isaiah Neyor, though, I think he's probably going to be the most impactful transfer here on Texas's offense. Well, outside of Ewers, of course. In this receiving core, though, averaging nearly 20 yards per catch, 878 yards and 11 touchdowns at Wyoming. That's a run-first offense. This guy has plenty of speed. They left him one-on-one, not just in the middle of the field, but in the red zone as well. He's a very physical pass catcher. They're going to use him in a variety of ways. I love Neyor. He's probably my favorite transfer in this receiving group. And they're going to combine that with Xavier Worthy. This guy shined as a true freshman. 6'1", 160. I hope he's getting a little bigger this offseason, but from a pure athletic standpoint, he is phenomenal. Great route runner, shakes people with ease. 61 receptions, 981 yards, and 12 scores last year from him. And we keep going. It gets even better. Jordan Whittington, a former running back in high school, expected a big breakout year from him last year. Played very well before his injury. second on the team in receptions and yards, 377 on 26 grabs in 8 games. I love this starting group of receivers for Quinn Ewers to work with. And then you got Bijan Robinson, like we just talked about. How much better can it get for Texas to, at least score 40 a game this year?
This offense has potential to be absolutely star-studded and superstar offense this year. Jai Hall impressed a lot of Alabama fans during the 2021 spring game, but then attitude problems, off-the-field issues kind of kept him out of Nick Saban's plans, and he had a couple bad drops in the national championship game. He finds his way heading over to Austin, joining Jaleel Billingsley. The two of them have serious potential to make some impacts on this team. I like the way it looks. Xavier Worthy, such a talented wide receiver, nearly 1,000 yards last season. He can easily break that this year with Quinn Ewers throwing to him. They have so much talent in this wide receiving core, and when you have a quarterback like that who can absolutely gunsling it and is a former number one recruit from Southlake, Texas, I think the sky's the limit for this offense. If they can break 40 points easily next year, like you said, I love the talent here. I love the potential, and this team is going to be great on offense.
Depth isn't as ideal at wide receivers as it is at running back. It wasn't really great last year, and I wouldn't say it's phenomenal this year. Marcus Washington transfers out. They do have some guys, some younger guys like Tariq Milton coming over, Troy Amiri. I didn't know they got Tariq Milton. I just seen that now from Iowa State. That's pretty impressive. But overall, I think the depth, and now that I see that Milton is a little bit better, but the biggest concern with the offense is the offensive line. They had a great recruiting class. Short term's not as bright as the long term. Texas struggled to even stop 300 rushes in multiple games. You've seen Iowa State, Arkansas is getting right after the quarterback. They couldn't block a horse last year. Right guard Hayden Connor had a very impressive spring. They like him. Jake Majors, his second year as a starter. The rest of the unit is really a puzzle. Plenty of young guys. They're all going to be gunning for time early. That's maybe why they landed guys like Kelvin Banks and Devon Campbell, Cole Hudson as well. 3 impact freshmen that should potentially crack the lineup this year. This offensive line, I don't know what the offensive combination is going to be, but they have a few different things they can roll out with, but it doesn't matter who starts. They need to be better.
Like you said, there's a bunch of different combinations that can be made here. I think Cole Hudson is a guy I look at a lot who has a ton of potential. I kind of like the highlight. He has Kelvin Banks as well. I think he has some serious talent. He can go in, but it's really be interesting to see what type of puzzle piece they put together during spring practice because there's so many different combinations and options you can do with the offensive line. They disappointed last year. Can they step up this year and protect their star-studded quarterback in the backfield and give those running rooms for Bijan Robinson?
Campbell and Banks, those were 2 high-end 5 stars, so I wouldn't be shocked if they played early. It's been a big problem for years, this offensive line. I like the long-term future, though, especially with Kyle Flood here. So offense, obviously a superstar caliber unit here. They have talent all over the place at every single position. They have backups at every single position that could probably star as well. So I'm very excited for this offense. And that leads us to a defense that has a lot of work to do. The 4-2-5 from Kwiatkowski. He runs a variety of schemes. That seems to be the main one here. Defense flat out struggled last year, Nick. They were 100th in sacks, 101st in yards per game allowed, 3rd worst in the conference in sacks. This defensive line features the same guys I talked about last year. Alfred Collins, Moro Ojamo, Cam Coburn, 346. Tivondre Sweat, 6'4", 335. Some really good size on the interior defensive line. I think that group is solid, but with depth and size, but the edge is a big question mark. Collins, 6'5", 302. Not really built to come off the edge. They did it anyways last year with him. He should slide back inside this year, though. I really don't know where they're going to get production from the outside, though. They lack talent. They lack depth. They lack potential, it seems. Ovi Uafo, 42 tackles. He might be something there. Baron Sorrell, likely to start as a former low-end 3-star. He's still a development player. That's not good. The pass rush has major issues. Again, no talent, no depth. They did land 2 top 120 ranked true freshmen in Justice Finkley and Jamon Tapp. But overall, I'm very concerned.
114th in run defense, 101 in sacks. Like you said, it's just absolutely flat out disappointing for the Texas team. They gave up 425 yards per game on defense last year. It's just not good enough. The depth isn't there on the defensive line. None of these guys really jump off the paper for you as an impact player. I don't really see anyone on this list from like, oh yeah, that guy's gonna be good for 10 sacks this season. They don't really have that talent, and I don't really know where they're gonna come from. A couple of these freshmen might have to step up and make some impact plays. But overall, I'm super concerned with the defensive line. I think it's their major, most important weakness on this defense.
Yeah, nothing really changed from a season ago other than they added some impact freshmen that, I can't really bank on those guys to come in and make an impact. So nothing much changed. I don't really see much improvement. If anything, I think they might even get worse in the pass rushing department. And, Collins last year being that size coming off the edge, asking him to do that, just pretty ridiculous. Long term, that's an area they're starting to focus on. But for this season, not very happy with that unit. But the middle of the defense has some heat. Demarion Overshown, explosive, got great closing speed, instinctive linebacker. His instincts are still improving, but overall he's showcased some really strong raw talent. He's still learning his position too. Far from an asset in coverage, but I do think he's making some strides. He had 74 tackles. And Luke Brockermeyer, 72 stops, 2 picks. He was quite sound in coverage at times. I think they got some nice work here for Pete Kodakowski in the middle of this defense. Jalen Ford, he was third on the team with 54 tackles. He led the team with 6 tackles for loss last year. I think this team, they struggled to get into the backfield last year. They're going to have to blitz a lot this fall. They don't exactly have fast or bendy players. They're going to just have their way. So I think they're going to have to figure out ways to blitz, make havoc up the middle happen, and that's really the formula, I think, for this front seven this year.
Overshone and Brockermeyer both had 74 and 72 tackles respectively with 5 tackles for loss each. I think the two of them together have some serious potential to grow as linebackers and develop their ability and get some more sacks. They really lacked in the sack department with only 2.5 sacks between the two of them. I like what they can do. I like the size on both of them. I think they have serious potential at linebacker to put up similar numbers, that maybe even better numbers than 72 and 74 tackles respectively. I think that they have decent potential in this linebacking core. I think the coaching is also there as well, and it's definitely a lot better than defensive.
The pass rush and the secondary did not seem to complement each other one bit. Neither of the units really helped each other out. 125th in FBS with a 67% opponent completion rating. That's not good. They were 102nd on third down. That was also pretty poor. They were fourth nationally, though, with 30-plus yard pass plays allowed. So they're quite good downfield. But, that's really impressive because they had no pass rush, and they still allowed 4 300-plus passers. But the run defense was so poor that they didn't have to go downfield. You could get things underneath, off-play action with ease. The safeties struggled to provide help versus the run. The coverage was iffy. They had some solid talent, so it was a big mystery to see them struggle as much as they did. The corners weren't much better than the safeties. Ryan Watts, though, transferred from Ohio State to start with Deshaun Jameson. And then Anthony Cook. He was really good last season. Sure-handed tackler, was impressive in coverage. They're looking to move him from slot to safety, though. We'll see how that goes. I like Keaton Crawford as well. Blazing speed. Reports indicated he had a great spring practice. Overall, though, this secondary was not good. This defense as a whole was not good. They allowed 35 points per game in conference play. They gave up 57 points to Kansas. Kansas had 8 touchdowns that night. Over the previous 5 games before that, they had a combined 8 touchdowns total. So obviously that is not good one bit. What can this defense do this season, at least in the short term, to at least help out this offense? It's going to be blazing good this year.
I like Keaton Crawford. He only played in 3 games last season. I think he has potential to make some impacts. He only had 5 tackles in those 3 games, limited appearances. I think across the board, they're making some moves here. They moved Anthony Cook, like you said. I think he has some potential to be a solid player. I like the fit for him there. In the secondary, he had 47 tackles last year. In general, the secondary should improve this year. I think the pickup of Ryan Watts from Ohio State is a really huge pickup for them. I think that's a solid player to add through the portal. Sark's maybe making some nice moves in the portal. I like what this secondary looks like on paper. I just don't know if they have the potential right now to step up and make the plays they need. But on paper, they're a solid secondary, and they have some real potential here with Watts and bringing in Cook and converting him over.
Looking at the schedule and the prediction here, interesting non-conference. Bama's a massive game for this program. A win here could really shake a lot of things up. 15-point underdogs currently, especially with a few former Bama guys there. I know Sark probably doesn't have as much animosity as the 2 pass catchers do. That's obviously going to be a massive game for them here in Austin. UTSA the next week, not an easy matchup for this defense. Great balanced offense from last year. They get every part of that passing attack led by Frank Harris. They're all back. 12-win team a season ago. They're no slouch, especially since Texas lost to Kansas last year. I think they do lose the Texas Tech. I love the new staff in Lubbock. I think Zach Kitley's offense is going to cause problems for this defense. And then I think they'll turn around, and I think they'll start to get things on track a bit. 9-3 overall is the verdict. I think they can certainly lose games to Kansas State, Oklahoma, Iowa State. This offense is going to be tough. Defense likely won't be much better. It can certainly get worse, too. I don't really know what to expect from that unit because not much really changes, at least here in the short term. 9 may be a stretch, but they don't have overly tough matchups in conference. I do think they will beat the Sooners in Dallas. Love that rivalry every single year. I think they'll finally get over that hump. The last 2 years, they've been so close. This year, I think the offense will outscore Oklahoma. 9-3 is my pick for the Longhorns.
I love the scheduling of Alabama. This is similar to the game they scheduled against LSU during the 2019 season. I like them hosting the Crimson Tide. That's a huge out-of-conference game, especially for Alabama as well. They haven't played a true conference road test, a non-conference road test in a very long time. Texas hosts them in Austin on September 10th. Across the board, the schedule is your basic Big 12 schedule, but I think they have potential here to pick up a lot more wins than they have in previous seasons. I do think Kansas State has serious potential to beat them. And if I had to pick a game here that I'd flip Kansas State and put them at 8-4. I think because Kansas State Wildcats are just going to be a stronger team this year. But for Texas, an 8-4 record would not be a disappointing record for Steve Sarkisian in his second season, getting them into a bowl game. I like the scheduling of UTSA as well. I think that's an interesting matchup early on in the season.
I do think this offense has the potential to outscore everybody, and I do think they could even end up in the playoffs. I know it's pretty wild to say all of a sudden after picking them to not do that type of performance this fall, but this offense is going to be crazy good. If the defense can give them just a little bit of effort in the struggling areas, I think they could certainly make a push for the playoffs. But we'll see what happens. They certainly have a lot of potential. They do have some issues, though, all over the roster. Like the offensive line's a concern, and the entire defense is obviously a question mark. But if they can get a lot more out of those positional groups, I think you could even be looking at an 11-1 season. I do think they lose at Bama. But hosting them here in Austin, that's obviously big for them. And, you never know what happens. So I think they could certainly hit the 11, potentially 12-win mark this season. But I'm going to stick with 9. We'll see what happens. Very excited to see what Quinn Ewers does. Long-awaited arrival for him. What are your final thoughts, Nick, on Texas?
I think 8-4 is right where they belong for me. I think they will lose to Kansas State. They could definitely beat Oklahoma in Dallas. That might be a tough game as well. That rivalry is so interesting with the way it goes back and forth between these two programs. Been really close the last couple of years, especially the overtime game 2 years ago. This Texas team, a lot of improvements in Austin for me. Quinn Ewers is just such a talented quarterback, number 1 overall recruit previously. I think he has the potential to step in and sort of lead this team and sort of be the guy they've been looking for, like I said, since Colt McCoy. I love the talent he possesses. I love the talent they have on offense. I just get concerned about the defense. I expect high-flying shootouts pretty much in every game this season for this team, but interesting how they go. For me, 8-4, though, is going to be my record prediction.
Okay, for today's episode, guys, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Nick, as always, thank you.
Thank you so much.
See you guys next time.